My name is Daniel Mercer, and today I'm going to share the story of how one decision in a dim underground parking level flipped my entire career and my life upside down. It begins with a storm, a phone buzzing nonstop, and a truth I ignored for years. What happened next showed me who I really was and who everyone around me had been the whole time. Stick with me, because this isn't just about work, it's about waking up before everything you value slips through your fingers. Before we go on, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Your support gives me the push to bring you more real, emotional stories just like this one. The rain was beating against my car window so loudly that it drowned out my thoughts. I sat there staring at my mobile display, the screen stacked with 23 missed calls. Earlier that week, Grant Ellison had looked straight at me and said I wasn't ready for a promotion. Yet now everyone at Summit Core Operations was treating my number like an emergency hotline. I was 47 years old, and until that moment, I thought I had my path mapped out. Turns out the map was drawn by people who never planned to let me climb higher than they wanted. I'd been with the company for 7 years. After serving 10 years in the National Maritime Service, where I learned fast that if you mess up a supply chain, someone gets hurt. Every tool, every chart, every backup plan had to be flawless. That mindset followed me into civilian work, whether I liked it or not. When Summit Core hired me, their operations department looked like a puzzle dumped out on the floor pieces everywhere, nothing labeled. The guy before me left without a single handover note. For half a year, I rebuilt everything from scratch. Late nights, weekend shifts, step-by-step guides for processes no one had ever bothered to organize. Back then, Tyler was only 6, and it had been 4 years since Emily passed. He once asked why I slept more at the office than at home. It stuck with me, but I kept grinding anyway, believing hard work would eventually speak for itself. For those 7 years, I became the invisible power cable that nobody noticed unless it failed. When Ironcrest Manufacturing needed help at odd hours, I was there. When systems broke down, I pieced them back together. My internal procedure guide basically became the heartbeat of the department. Then came Grant's big vision, Eisen 2 years ago. He arrived as my new boss, pleasant enough, but the kind of leader who talked strategy all day and never touched the systems sending him. Those reports dot, and he had a plan. A plan that involved his son, Nolan Ellison, fresh from Northridge Business School, 24 years old and completely untested. No late-night crises, no upset clients, no rebuilding anything from the bottom up. The promotion meeting fell on a Wednesday. I showed up with a document binder full of proof, efficiency up, errors down, and the $7.6 million annually I kept flowing from Ironcrest. Grant skimmed it like he was flipping through a menu he had no intention of ordering from. Then he said it. Nolan would be joining the department as Senior Workflow Manager, the position I'd been working toward for nearly a decade. When I asked what happened to my future in all of this, Grant gave me a puzzled look and said I'd be staying where I was, and that Nolan would need someone seasoned to help him catch on. In other words, I do the work. He gets the title. Grant gets the credit. I kept my face steady. Years in the service taught me how. I told him I see how it is, thanked him for the feedback, and walked out of the supervisor's office. Instead of returning to my desk, I kept walking. Straight past the break room, the elevators, the lobby until I hit the underground parking level. That's when something in my chest finally snapped into place. I realized quitting wouldn't teach anyone a lesson. But following my job description exactly as written, not a stitch more dash might. My job said 9 to 5, not 7 a.m. prep sessions for grants, 9:15 a.m. meetings, not fixing problems for departments that weren't mine, not being the unofficial safety net holding up the whole building. So that evening, I drove home and did something I hadn't done in years. At 5:20 p.m. I turned off my work phone when I walked in at 5:50 p.m. Tyler looked up from the living room with big eyes. "Dad, why are you home this early?" I smiled, feeling strange and light for the first time in forever. "My time matters too," I told him. "Want to grab the sports gear and play before dinner?" His face brightened instantly, like someone switched on a light inside him. And that's the moment everything truly began to change. The next Wednesday morning, I walked into the corporate operations wing right at 9 a.m. not a minute earlier. No briefing notes for Grant Ellison, no early prep, no crisis prevention. I simply opened my inbox and answered only the messages that had my name on them. Everything else went straight to the departments responsible. Before lunch, the shift in routine had people whispering. Linda from accounting appeared beside my desk, wearing a puzzled look. "Daniel, did you check that message about Ironcrest Manufacturing's shipping issue?" "I did," I said, keeping my eyes on the quarterly report I was finishing. "So, are you going to fix it?" "That's a freight and sourcing problem," I explained gently. "I've already forwarded it to them. They'll take it from here." Linda blinked at me. "But you usually take care of these cross-steam things." I gave her a small smile. I've been encouraged to stick to my official duties, trying to use my time wisely. Her confusion told me more than any meeting ever had. People had gotten so used to me plugging every hole that they forgot which tasks were mine and which were never supposed to land on my desk by Friday. The cracks in the system were impossible to ignore. The Ironcrest issue had bounced between teams all day. 2 other clients were waiting on simple updates because no one remembered the escalation steps. I watched the whole mess unfold like a science experiment, quietly noting how many people had been using me as a shortcut instead of learning their own procedures. Around 2 p.m., Simon from procurement showed up, looking shaken. "Daniel, the Redline Supply Co. purchase order is jammed in the approval system. Can you, do your usual magic?" "What seems to be the trouble?" I asked. "The system won't accept their new billing info, and nobody knows how to override it." "That override is in Section 7 of the Internal Procedure Guide," I said. "It needs supervisor approval from both your team and accounting." Simon groaned. "That'll take hours." "It's a safety lock to stop billing fraud," I reminded him. "Pretty important." He stared at me as if I'd turned into someone else. "You always get this stuff done in 5 minutes." "I had special permissions before," I said lightly, "but with all the restructuring happening, I figured it was best to follow normal protocol." He left, muttering under his breath, probably trying to figure out when I'd grown so rule-focused that evening. I walked through the door around 5:15 p.m. Tyler was at the kitchen table, hunched over homework. "Dad, can you help me with this math?" he asked. For the first time in a long while, my brain wasn't buzzing with work calls. We sat there for an hour going through equations, and I realized how much of his childhood I'd been missing in the rush to prove myself as we wrapped up. Tyler looked at me thoughtfully. "You've changed this week. How so?" I asked. "You're calmer, like you're really here, not halfway at work." His words hit deeper than he knew. He saw a version of me I hadn't let myself be in years. The real storm rolled in on Monday morning. I walked into the office at 9 a.m. and found a panic spreading through the hallway. Grant paced outside a meeting room. Nolan looked unsteady, clutching a stack of papers. And Malcolm Price, our division director, had been called in early, which never happened unless things were falling apart. Before I reached my desk, the receptionist hurried over. "Daniel, they need you in meeting suite to be right now." Inside, Malcolm exhaled like someone had just handed him oxygen. "Daniel, thank goodness. We've hit a major problem with Ironcrest Manufacturing. What's going on?" I asked. Grant launched into an explanation, but he only understood pieces of it. Something about failed system integration and a looming deadline. Nolan scribbled notes, asking questions that showed he was completely lost. 2 corporate board representatives watched from the corner with tight faces. "Ironcrest called an emergency meeting for 10:20 a.m., one of them said. "Their whole queue for rollout is at risk. They're considering canceling the partnership." I skimmed the documents in front of me. The issue wasn't new. I'd fixed versions of it before. All it needed was careful sequencing of changes across multiple systems, time-consuming but doable. "This is tied to their custom configuration," I explained. "The fix is in the Technical Rollout Guide, Section 12. It walks through each system change in order." Nolan flipped through the guide like he was searching for buried treasure. "Which part again?" "Section 12, subsections 4.7 through 4.2. It takes about 3 hours if you follow the steps." Malcolm leaned forward. "Daniel, can you take care of this immediately?" I checked my watch. "I have a compliance review with the National Compliance Bureau at 10:45 a.m. It's due before the day ends. Missing it comes with regulatory fines and risks our license." Grant cut in quickly. "The review can wait. Ironcrest comes first. I shook my head. Skipping the review puts every client at risk, not just Ironcrest. The room went completely still as everyone realized what that meant. Malcolm spoke carefully. What options do we have? Nolan can follow the documented procedure. I'll be available between review sessions. Nolan looked pale. I don't think I'm ready for something this serious. The guide is detailed, I told him. Everyone starts inexperienced. This is exactly how you learn. Grant's face tightened. Daniel, we need you to fix this yourself. I can lead the Ironcrest fix, I said, but only if you want me to delay the compliance review. I just want to be sure everyone understands the consequences. And suddenly, nobody in the room seemed so confident anymore. Malcolm raised his hand before anyone could argue again. Let's slow down and look at this, he said. What would it actually take to cover both problems? I mapped it out in my head. The compliance review runs in 2-hour blocks, I explained. I can jump in on the most urgent Ironcrest fixes between sessions, but if I do both, the full solution won't be done until after 5 p.m. That's almost on top of Ironcrest's deadline. One of the corporate board representatives nodded. That's tight. It is, I said. In the past, I would have stayed until midnight and made it happen. But I've been rethinking a few things. My son has a game tonight that I've already missed twice this month. The room went completely still. Only the faint hum of the AC filled the silence. Malcolm leaned forward. Daniel, I'm going to be blunt. What would it take for you to step in the way you always have? I looked around the table. They had leaned on me for 7 years without really seeing it. Now suddenly, my boundaries were their crisis. Well, I said slowly, maybe we should start by talking about what my role really is here. Grant jumped in. Your role is to solve operational problems. According to my job description, I replied, my role is to manage daily operations within my assigned scope. The Ironcrest rollout belongs to project management, which reports somewhere else on the chart. One of the board reps leaned forward. So you're refusing to step in? Not at all, I said calmly. I'm saying if we want this fixed properly, we need clear responsibility and authority. Nolan is about to start as Senior Workflow Manager on Monday. This is a perfect chance for him to actually learn the systems he's supposed to lead. Nolan's voice came out unsteady. Daniel, I appreciate that you believe in me, but I'm not ready for something this big. I turned to him and softened my tone. Nolan, you have a degree from Northridge Business School. You re-smart. The only real difference between us is that I've been through these fires before. Everyone starts inexperienced. He swallowed. What if I mess it up? Then we fix it together, I said. That's how you grow. The technical rollout guide is detailed, and I'll be around for questions. Grant shifted in his chair, restless. We don't have the luxury for practice runs. Actually, we do, I countered. This Ironcrest issue has been building for weeks because people ignored the proper steps. A few more hours won't suddenly make it worse. Malcolm studied me for a long moment. Daniel, something in you shifted this week. You're right, I said. I've been thinking about my career and what I want to leave behind. And what have you decided? He asked. That I've been propping up a broken system, I answered. Every time I stepped outside my role to save the day, I stopped this company from building real processes and from letting other people develop their skills. I let that hang in the air before adding, what happens when I retire? Or get hit by a bus? Or accept that offer from Norwood Enterprises? One of the board reps narrowed his eyes. What offer? A competitor reached out last month. I said, they want me as their operations director at Lead. 32% salary increase, fully remote. I haven't replied yet because I've been loyal to Summit Core Operations. That part was true. I just hadn't taken it seriously until now. Malcolm and the board rep exchanged a quick look. Grant's face turned uneasy. Let's move this conversation, Malcolm said at last. Nolan, start reviewing the Ironcrest documentation with Daniel's help. Everyone else, come with me to the division director's workspace. As Nolan and I walked back toward my desk, he let out a breath. Daniel, I never asked my dad to give me that promotion, he said quietly. I know you earned it. I stopped and faced him. Nolan, you seem like a good guy. This isn't about blame. It's about what's healthy for the company and for you, he frowned. What do you mean? If your dad had pushed you into that role before you were ready, you would have crashed, I said. Not because you're incapable, but because you haven't had time to learn. That kind of failure can haunt your confidence and your reputation for years. He nodded slowly. Never looked at it like that. Real leadership isn't about grabbing the title and hoping you'll figure it out, I told him. It's about building the skills, so when the pressure comes, you don't fall apart. If you're serious about operations, you need to know these systems better than anyone. We spent the next hour digging into the Ironcrest materials. Nolan asked sharp questions. He connected dots faster than I expected. With the right guidance, he could actually become a strong manager next week. But down the line, around noon, Malcolm reappeared beside my desk. "Daniel, can we talk alone?" he asked. We headed to the division director's workspace, where the same board representative was waiting. I noticed Grant wasn't there this time. "Please, sit," Malcolm said. "I'm going to be very open with you. We've mishandled this department." "In what way?" I asked. The board rep answered. "We built an unsustainable dependence on your knowledge without matching recognition or pay. We also let family ties affect promotion decisions." I waited, saying nothing. Malcolm took a breath. "We'd like to offer you the role of Operations Directorate Lead, reporting directly to me. That comes with a 32% salary increase, full authority to redesign the department, and permission to bring in 2 senior hires of your choosing." It wasn't the wild raise I'd once imagined, but it was real, solid, and respectful. "What happens with Nolan?" I asked. "He'll start as an operations associate," Malcolm said. "He'll move up if he proves himself, not because of his last name." "And Grant?" I asked. Malcolm shifted in his chair. "Grant will move into a strategic planning position. All operational teams will report through your office." So he wasn't being thrown out, just moved. Out of the lane he shouldn't have been driving in. Not revenge, accountability. "I'll need some time to think," I finally said. Malcolm nodded. "Fair enough. But, Daniel, I'll need your answer by early Monday morning. And regardless of what you decide, we could really use your help getting Ironcrest stable today." "I'll take care of it this afternoon," I told him. "Nolan can shadow me." Walking back to my desk, my thoughts were a knot of excitement and doubt. They were offering everything I had, quietly waited for recognition, real authority, fair compensation. But even more than that, they were admitting I'd been the backbone of the department for years. Still, another part of me wondered if leaving for Norwood Enterprises would be cleaner. A whole new start without old habits holding me back. That afternoon, Nolan and I dove into the fixes. I didn't just show him where to click or which command to run. I explained how each system depended on the others, and why skipping one step could crash the whole setup. He filled page after page in his small journal, asking thoughtful questions and trying to understand the bigger picture. "This is a lot," he said when we wrapped up close to 4:10 p.m. "It's taken me 7 years of trial and error," I told him, "and plenty of late nights when nobody else wanted to read the manuals." My dad made it sound like simple project work. I shook my head gently. Coordination is just the surface. Real operations are like solving a giant puzzle while someone shakes the table. We got Ironcrest's system back to full function, and Nolan had enough notes to teach a class. As I packed up at 5 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Tyler. "Dad, the game starts at 6:15. Will you actually make it?" I stared at his words longer than I expected. For years, my answer would have been, maybe someday, but not that night. "I'll definitely be there." And I was. Tyler pitched with all the confidence in the world, striking out the cleanup hitter using a curveball we'd practiced the weekend before. My heart felt lighter than it had in years. Afterward, we stopped for a frozen treat, sitting outside on a warm bench as he told me about school and summer plans. "Dad," he asked between bites, "are you going to keep coming to my games?" "That's the goal, buddy. I don't want to miss any more," he grinned. Good Connor's dad never misses his games, and I was starting to feel jealous. That comment hit deeper than he knew. My 11-year-old had noticed every empty seat where I should have been. The weekend became a long conversation inside my own head. The operations directorate lead role meant everything I'd been working toward finally, shaping a department the right way. But walking into Norwood would mean no history, no shadows, no coworkers who only remembered me as the guy fixing everyone's messes by late Sunday night. I knew what I wanted. On early Monday morning, I walked into Malcolm's office at 8:30 a.m., a middle ground between my old habit of 7 a.m. starts and the strict 9 to 5 I'd been practicing. "I'm accepting your offer," I said. "But I have 2 conditions." Malcolm gestured for me to continue. "First, I want full authority to hire and develop internal talent. Too many strong people get ignored because they're in the wrong seat." "Agreed." "Second, we need a real cross-training plan. This week showed how dangerous it is for one person to hold all the critical knowledge." "Also agreed," he said. "Anything else?" "One more thing. I want Nolan to succeed if he chooses this field, but only by earning it." Malcolm smiled. "I think you'll be surprised. He's more committed than his father realized." The next 5 weeks flew by. I redesigned the department around clear responsibilities, no more guessing who owned what. I hired 2 talented senior staff members who brought fresh energy, and I gave them the guidance they needed so they weren't scrambling the way I once had. Nolan turned out to be a workhorse. He stayed late not because he was told to, but because he wanted to truly master the systems. By the end of 2 months, he was handling routine problems on his own and showing the beginnings of real leadership. The biggest surprise was Grant. Once he stepped away from trying to manage things he didn't understand, his strategic ideas finally had room to shine. His mix of high-level thinking and our new stable foundation helped Midcore land 2 significant new contracts. By 5 months later, everything looked different. I was home by 6:30 p.m. almost every night. My team was confident and capable, and I attended every one of Tyler's remaining games that season, every single one. One evening, as we were working through his algebra homework, Tyler glanced up at me. "So, are you really important at work now?" he asked. I laughed softly. "I was always important. It just took them a while to see it." "Is that why you used to work so much? To make them notice?" "Smart kid, yeah," I admitted, "but I learned something. The people who matter will see your value without you running yourself into the ground. And the ones who don't, sometimes you have to let them figure out what they're missing." He nodded and returned to his math problems. Using that patient step-by-step method I'd been teaching him for years, watching him, I realized the truth. Being overlooked wasn't my failure. Letting it continue was. The biggest victory wasn't the title or the pay. It was finally being recognized for what I had always been capable of, and being home in time to help my son learn, grow, and feel seen. So if you've ever felt invisible at work, remember this: your value isn't erased just because someone else refuses to look. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop carrying other people's blindness and start letting your worth shine where no one can ignore it.